Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Big day after a big night where the Wild, for the first time in 11 years, advanced past the first round and goes into round two. Normally, Anthony, we'd be texting with the PR department trying to figure out when locker cleanup day is and all the plans for that, and then I'd be jetting off to a second round series elsewhere. So this is going to be abnormal for me, at least, going to Denver in a couple days for round two. And man, what a night at Grand Casino Arena where the Wild came out strong, absolutely dominated the first period, jumped out to an early 1-0 lead. And boy, oh boy, did the Wild get their money's worth with Quinn Hughes yesterday. Controlled a game like few other defensemen ever could. And winds up with 3 points, becomes the first Wild defenseman in history to get a series-clinching goal, and the Wild move on to play the Colorado Avalanche.
He was dominant. It was his best game of the series by far, I thought, last night, and it was just a special moment. I think we had talked about it on our last pod, but I know I had mentioned it in our pregame open last night, and I think maybe I'd posted something on social media that I thought it was the biggest game in the history of the Wild franchise. And the playoff run in 2003 was all house money. The first round series wins in 14 and 15 were just at the start of something that it just felt different. This was 8 consecutive first round playoff losses, a couple of them at the hands of the franchise that had left for Dallas, a team that had been on the cusp seemingly for the last few years. It just felt like this was their moment, and they came through in a big way. The start was good. The effort was solid throughout. That was a really good Dallas Stars team. I think it was right up there with those Chicago teams that the Wild faced in 13, 14, 15 as the best teams they've ever faced in the postseason. And yet they took them down when Dallas's power play was clicking. Their top players, their superstars, all played well in this series, and Minnesota's were just better. I think it was a statement night for Minnesota, and this was a pressure that was the fan base, the ownership, the management, trickled all the way down inside that room. And I know some of the guys hadn't been here for all of it. They all knew it. They all felt it. And to have this step taken against the Dallas Stars seemed to be the perfect way to finally advance into the second round and to kind of take down the villain, so to speak, in Dallas. I think it just felt like a storybook type deal for Minnesota. And I know they say they're not done yet, but this was a huge step on a big night for the franchise.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And that's how I agree with you. Like, this wasn't just some fan base and reporter narrative, right? This is when
there was
you
a reporter that really furthered the narrative on a regular basis.
Hey, there's only one person on the show that picked the Wild to win this series, and that was me, by the way. So
that's true.
There you go. So let me and by the way, in 6 games. But to your point, like, Anthony, like, this wasn't just us and the fans, right? Like, this became something that did define this franchise. And when you give up the equivalent of 4 first-round picks for Quinn Hughes, you are saying we are winning now. We are not losing out in the first round. And you've made the point, and it's absolutely true, that you're playing one of the best teams in the league in the first round, and somebody had to lose, and it may have been the Wild, and you can't overreact to that. But still, when you give up those type of assets for Quinn, it just creates this internal pressure. And Craig Leopold wasn't going to be happy. Certainly Belgarin wouldn't have been happy. I know Jim Nill's definitely not happy today. But this team really came out and look, Dallas could use this as solace all they want, that the territorial advantage was even and the shots were even and the chances were even at 5-on-5. That team got dominated at 5-on-5 on the scoreboard, and that's what matters. And when you have Wyatt Johnston and Mikko Rantanen and Matt Duchene and Jason Robertson, I know they're without Rope Hintz, you cannot be outscored 14-4 in a 5-on-5 in a playoff series and expect to win or accept that. And the Wild, I just think that team, and Brock Faber said it last night, they didn't want to be hit anymore, Anthony. Like, there were guys in that game last night that did not want to get to a Game 7 because they could not handle another Marcus Foligno check or a Michael McCarron check. And I think that is the big advantage of this team, is that everybody's physical, everybody buys in and just plays a certain way that I think actually could wreak havoc with Colorado as well. But your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that was a part of it. The 5-on-5 thing is interesting to me because each game, as I'm digging in and building our graphics and doing some of the research stuff, I saw all those same stats, the underlying numbers that said that it was dead even, and in some cases, Dallas even had the advantage in terms of possession and chances, and it didn't feel that way watching the game. It didn't feel as one-sided as 14-4 either. I mean, and even if you look at Game 6, Dallas had a lead at one point in that game, and they had the territorial advantage when it was 2-2 for a decent chunk of the third period before Quinn Hughes just makes a play, and all of a sudden the Wild are up 3-2. I do think there's validity to the physical part of this, though. I think, and I think it's an exaggeration to say that these guys didn't want a Game 7. Obviously they did, but I think the hits early in the series started to take their toll, and that's something that we've heard the guys like Marcus Foligno talk about before, where you deliver and you pound early in a series. That takes its toll by game 4, 5, 6. Those defensemen are looking over their shoulder going back to play a puck. And the puck battles went Minnesota's way throughout this series along the wall. And I thought that became more and more evident as game 6 progressed. That is a very
Can I just
talented.
interrupt just one thing? There was one shift last night where Foligno hit one of the Folignos hit McCarron in the right corner, and then Nico Sturm went and finish his check on Heiskanen in the left corner. And I'm not kidding you, Heiskanen looked at the ceiling like, enough, man. Like,
Yeah.
I just think that's what I mean by they didn't want to play
Right.
games.
Yeah.
Obviously,
No.
they want, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
And
it
that's
just
what I was
became
getting
like,
at. Is I
oh
think
my,
that
enough, man. You know?
it wears you down without a
Yeah.
doubt, and it took its toll on the forwards too. I mean, there were some plays last night where Matt Duchene shied away from a physical battle, and Jason Robertson, who had a great series, scored in each of the first 5 games. There was one shift last night where there was a loose puck along the wall, and you could tell that it was just kind of a, I want to say half-hearted, but it was a reach with the stick rather than a pouncing on this puck for the Stars. So you have to give Minnesota a lot of credit for that, because expected goals and chances and everything are one thing, but and now a part of this too is the goaltending that Dallas couldn't finish. But you hear Glenn Gulletson talk after the last couple of games that, hey, we've had looks, we just haven't finished. They didn't. That's true. Minnesota's big guns did finish. Matt Boldy did finish. Brock Faber did finish. Joel Eriksson did finish. And this is a story that we've talked about in reverse a couple times in previous playoff series. It was, last year against Vegas. I thought Minnesota was the better team for long stretches in the series, but they didn't finish. They didn't win. This time they did win. And this isn't going to be the last time these teams bang heads, because
No.
that's a good young core for Dallas. But I think when you really simplify it and look back at the whole series, this was 2 teams that were legitimate candidates, legitimate contenders to win the Cup, and the better team won in this series. Minnesota was the better team over 6 games, and there's so many little things that happen along the way, so many little plays, bounces, good breaks, bad breaks, whatever they might be, and enough of them went Minnesota's way. But I think when you go back to where you started your sentence about the fact that the Wild went and wanted to change things by getting Quinn Hughes, and that meant you had to win this year. I've said all along, like, I feel like when you go in to the Stanley Cup playoffs, the way you build your roster and the way you build your team can put you in a position where you want to be one of, say, the 3 or 4 in your conference that people say these 3 or 4 teams could legitimately win it all. And the moves the Wild made them one of those teams. But the Stanley Cup playoffs are a fickle thing. It's a bad bounce. It's a missed call or a bad call or a big save or a soft goal that can change everything. What you have to have is good goaltending, good health, and good luck. In this series, the Wild had that. Dallas didn't. And it's what Minnesota had missed in previous years. Think of the playoff series where it was Eriksson and Kaprizov that got banged up instead of Hintz and Lundqvist, where it was Jake Ottinger standing on his head in games 4, 5, 6 instead of Jesper Wallstedt making the big save. So in this series, Minnesota got some of those breaks. We'll see if it continues through the next 3 rounds. But what the Wild did was put themselves in a position to be a legit contender, and then they took advantage when things fell their way in this series.
Yeah, without a doubt, look, I'm with you. That I will say I do find it hilarious that like I was just looking at X the last couple days, and Dallas fans using the excuse of no Hintz and no Sagan and Lindquist being hurt. And when the Wild were doing that 3 years ago about Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek and Hartman and all those guys, Dallas was just poo pooing it, to the nth degree. So the one thing I will say, Anthony, I think that Dallas's MO with the referees, and you and I have talked about this a lot, has finally caught up to him. Like
Yeah,
they were not getting the benefit of the doubt. Mikko Rantanen got 6 minors in this series, was diving all over the ice. Essentially, I think dove himself into concussion protocol last
yeah.
night. And I just think that they are gonna. I was talking to somebody in the NHL the other day about Rantanen, and this person said to me he's got a long way to rehabilitate his reputation with the refs because they are all on the lookout for it now. And I think it was proven this series.
Yeah, I think it finally did. I thought early in the series it wasn't headed that way. When you think about the Jamie Benn plays, the things he got away with early in the series, the dive he took that really led to one of the biggest goals in the series. It could have been a series-changing goal on the power play after his phantom high stick that he took from Brock Faber. But yeah, I think as it went on, that evened out. The one thing I will say about Dallas's demeanor throughout was you never heard them complaining about it, though. You didn't hear them complaining about no Hintz, no Lundqvist. Didn't hear them complaining about a couple of the missed calls that we discussed on the last show. Ryan Hartman with the hand over the puck at a key time in Game 4 comes to mind, where they didn't really let that stuff get to them. But I think what was interesting to watch, and I don't remember if we talked about this or if I was just talking to Ryan Carter and Wes Walls about it, but coming into this series, one of the reasons why I thought Dallas was going to be a tough team to beat was because of all of their experience. This is a team that had been to the Western Conference Finals 3 years in a row, had won 6 playoff series with largely this roster. And I thought it was a team that wouldn't get rattled, wouldn't get phased, and maintain kind of an even keel approach to everything. I thought it was a big reason why they were able to bounce back from Game 1 and swing the series in their favor. I mean, let's not forget that after Game 3, a double overtime win in St. Paul, they were up 2-1 and looked like that they were not in control of the series, but certainly had the upper hand. But I think as the series progressed, that almost became a detriment to them. I didn't think they had the urgency in Game 5 that I expected to see from them. It was that same, just kind of businesslike, same as always, even keel, been here before, done this before. And I think it got to the point where Minnesota's energy and excitement about grasping something that was different became a bigger factor than it had been in the past. Where in the past, some of that overexuberance was Minnesota's undoing in some of their earlier playoff series. In this one, I think it was an energy level and a kind of a seize the moment kind of feel from this Wild roster that Dallas just couldn't match. And maybe this was the one time that experience became almost like a ho-hum, we've already done this, compared to a team that was tasting something for the first time.
Last night, I think that we saw why Vladimir Tarasenko has to be in your lineup, right? Obviously did not have a good first 5 games. I know a lot of fans were upset that he was not somebody that was tabbed to be scratched, but they finally score a 5-on-5 goal. It lasts 54 seconds. It's that simple, and that's what Vladimir Tarasenko does. The guy has 50 playoff goals. He's won 2 cups. You're not sitting Vladimir Tarasenko.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't think they ever should or would. I really, and I think that was an example of just one of those bounces the Wild got in this series where he fans on a puck, but then manages to recover and find it and punch it into an empty net. I thought that was one of the biggest plays of the game because it just balanced things out. If Dallas gets to the room 2-2 at that point, who knows, or 2-1 rather, I mean, who knows what happens into that third period. But I think you have to give some credit to John Hines for his lineup decisions
Mhm.
throughout this, going back to starting with the goaltender. It wasn't the easiest decision to go with the rookie, and it certainly was one that would have been open to second guessing more than maybe any other. If you had started the veteran Gustafsson and it didn't work out, you wouldn't have been second-guessed the way you would have if Wallstedt didn't work out. But then even throughout, and we talked about it going in, that with the additions at the deadline, they had the ability to change the look of their team, the feel of their team. And with guys coming back, I thought he made the right calls with who he pulled from the games. I thought Nico Sturm had earned a shot to get another look in this series after how well he played in Game 4. I thought it was great to give Bobby Brink the games they gave him, but then it was time to make a change and go back to Sturm. I thought I was a little surprised that they went with Petrie instead of Hunt in this game, just partially just because of the lefty-righty situation. But I think that he just said, look, we've got a chance to close them out. I want to lean on the veteran guys. And those veteran guys, I mean, Nico Sturm had another really good game for Minnesota. And this was a guy that down the stretch wasn't playing regularly and wasn't in the lineup early in this series.
Absolutely. And Michael McCarron as your third line center over Danilo Yurov, I think a lot of people wondered about that even. And McCarron has proven that he could absolutely play. And it's why he's going to make a fortune this offseason from somebody, whether it's Minnesota or somebody else.
And Yurov's going to be back before the playoffs are done. But it was a good time. I think this game, and I don't, this is going to sound like maybe worse than it is, but the games got a little bit heavy and fast, I felt, for Yurov as this series progressed. But he's going to be back, and he's going to be a really good player for this team for a long time. I believe he'll be back in the lineup during this Colorado series. But in those particular games, the first one, Brink had played well enough in games 2 and 3 to warrant a Game 4 shot, and they needed a guy that played his position rather than Yurov's. And then the way Sturm played in Game 4, I thought he was a good choice to come back in Game 6. And, now you see, does all of a sudden something change during this Colorado series where you want a little bit of a different look in your bottom 3 lines, really, but in particular your bottom 6? I think, I just wouldn't be surprised if we see all these guys back in there at some point for some part of this next series.
You've heard me talk about the Onyx Hunt app on here for years. Well, make sure you download the Onyx Fish app as well, because before you even pull the boat out of the garage, you can sort lakes by species, trophy potential, and keeper potential, so you're not just guessing and you're going out with a plan. You could also use the Onyx Fish app to filter walleye, bass, panfish, whatever you're chasing, and see species abundance and size data so you actually know what's in the lake before you launch. Everything you need to get there and get on fish is all in one app. Boat ramps, lake access points, public versus private land, points of interest like bait shops and camping. It's all built into the app. No more scrambling around 3 different apps or outdated reports. Onyx Fish gives you the proven fishing area data and local insights that used to take years to learn. So you could do a decade of knowledge all in about 10 minutes. So download Onyx Fish on the App Store or visit onyxmaps.com/fish. Spring fishing is here. Go find a lake you've been driving past for years and finally find out if it's worth the launch. Do I have a can't miss out of this world event that'll make your water worry-free and your home ridiculously cozy and comfy? It's the Aquarius Home Services and Connecticut Customer Appreciation 3-day open house. Aquarius's biggest sale of the year happening Friday, May 1st through Sunday, May 3rd. Enjoy a weekend packed with fun, a delicious pig roast, lots of gifts and prizes, and yes, even a petting zoo for the kiddos on Saturday and Sunday. The open house is jam-packed with all kinds of savings. Up to 30% off Connecticut, the world's most efficient water treatment system. I have it, you'll love it. 20% off salt and water filters. Up to 30% off heating and cooling systems, plus huge savings on generators, water heaters, and more. Plus, bring a water sample from your home or cabin. They'll test it for free while you eat, explore, and score some deals. It's all happening in Little Canada at 694 and 35E, right across from Dock 86. Aquarius Home Services. Go to aquariushomeservices.com right now for all the details and see you there. Aquarius Home Services, earning the right to be recommended.
Are you looking to move a little easier and feel better day to day? StretchLab can help. StretchLab is the leader in one-on-one assisted stretching with locations across the Twin Cities. Every session is customized, whether you're chasing a loose puck, grinding through men's league, or just trying to keep up with the game. It's not just recovery, it's mobility, prevention, and performance. Tight hips, sore back, it's all about staying in the game, whatever your game looks like. Don't sit this shift out. Book your first stretch today and feel the difference. Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why they use Clip Notes to save your haircut details, so no matter which stylist you see or Great Clips salon you visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of you. So do yourself a favor. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
I remember the 2008 series, night before the game one or 2 nights before game one, Nick Schultz's appendix went like that, and he missed the first 6 games or 5 games of that series. Probably shouldn't have even played the last game. Jonas Brodin, it has that same feel for me. If he's not in the series, it does change a lot because obviously you have a shutdown pair in Brodin and Spurgeon that has been absolutely elite. Now it changes everything because you have Middleton and Spurgeon and a third pair that, I mean, can you go Bogosian Petrie against Colorado in Denver where they could absolutely take advantage of it? Or do you have to, in practice the next couple days, try to really test and see if Hunt can get up to speed?
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting decision for Hines to make. And I'm going to credit Ryan Carter for this because I hadn't really thought about it until we were talking before the game last night. In last night's game, as good as Jonas Brodin has been, if you had to take one of the top 4 defensemen out for Minnesota, he might have been the most expendable just because of the fact that if you take out, let's say you take out, well, obviously Quinn Hughes nobody can replace him. But if you took out Faber or Spurgeon, it might have been a more difficult replacement in last night's game.
Mm-hmm.
But as we talked about it, and I said, but now when you look ahead, when you think about facing McKinnon or McDavid, Jonas Brodin is the guy. He's the guy who is maybe the most irreplaceable now among your top 4 defensemen. So in this series, I think the challenge is a lot different. The Dallas series was the way Dallas attacks was a bigger, stronger, get to the net kind of approach. In that situation, maybe Bogosian, Petrie, Middleton taking Brodin's spot next to Spurgeon was something that you could get away with. But I think it's going to be a bigger loss if it extends into this series to lose Brodin and his skating ability. And so to answer your question, if it were me, I'd be taking a long look at Hunt just because mobility on the back end might be more important in this series than sturdiness, where in the Dallas situation, I thought the sturdiness was maybe the bigger factor.
Yeah, and John Hines has pulled all the right levers so far, so we'll see if he makes those right decisions heading into the series. Let's talk about Colorado, Anthony. Real formidable opponent, extremely deep up the middle. I mean, their top 3 is Nathan McKinnon, Brock Nelson, and Nazem Kadri. Gabriel Landeskog has turned into a third-line guy for that team. Nicholas Waugh has been really, really good for them. Their fourth line with Drury and Kelly and Logan O'Connor. O'Connor always plays the Wild well. So their bottom 6, where I thought the Wild dominated Dallas, it's going to be a lot more difficult for the Wild to dominate this team. And then obviously the blue line is the one area where I think you could take advantage of, because obviously you have Taves and Makar, but you got Burns at his age right now with, I think it's Blankenberg. And then you have Brett Kulak and Malinsky as your third pair. Malinsky's played the Wild really well, local guy. But this is going to be a real, real tough series when you have a top line as good as Lehkonen, who Wild fans will grow to hate this series because he's so freaking good. McKinnon and Natchez, and then a second line with Ross Colton, Brock Nelson, and Valerie Nichushkin.
Yeah, I think this is going to be it's a different challenge. I agree with you. I think the one spot where they might be a little vulnerable is on the third defensive pair, but Dallas was the same way, and Minnesota was able to take advantage of that. In spite, I thought Dallas's top couple pair of defense there wasn't a Taves and Makar pair, but it was close with Heiskanen and Lindell. And
Lindell didn't have a great series though, man.
No, he didn't. And in fact, got taken
or something,
and got split up from Heiskanen last night. I mean, that's what I was going to say.
Harley also was abnormally weird, like.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good last night, but earlier in the series, and he lost Lundqvist, his partner during the series. I thought those two were good together. He wasn't as good when playing with Myers or Leah Bushkin or whoever else they played him in prior to Game 6 when they moved him up with Heiskanen. But I think one of the challenges is to match up down the middle with this Colorado club. I mean, the Avs were good down the middle and then went out and got Waugh and Kadri at the deadline. But Minnesota, they were able to go up against a Dallas club that I thought had an edge down the middle. And, faceoffs are a part of it. That's not all there is with centers. But Minnesota was really good on the faceoff dot. Now, they leaned heavily on Eriksson Ek and McCarron in particular in their own zone. Those two guys seem to take every draw in their defensive zone. They're going to have to do that again in this series because Colorado, well, deeper than Dallas down the middle, they're also deeper in scoring. And, Minnesota had a huge edge in the depth scoring in this series. If they can even play it even at lines 3 and 4 in the series against Colorado, I think they've got a shot. But this was the best team in the NHL, and Minnesota played them really well. And both teams went 2-1-1 in the head-to-head series during the regular year. But this is a better team than the one Minnesota just beat.
Before we quickly turn our attention to some of the other playoff series, Anthony, now that you're, got nothing to do, can I commission you to still put together charts for me?
Well, yeah, it was a strange feeling last night, and it's always a strange feeling, as you know, when your last game of the season comes to be, and most of the time that's a loss because the season ends and there's that finality to it. This was weird for me anyway. Driving to the rink last night, we had found out the night before that officially the national networks were going to take a Game 7 if it happened exclusively, so that we knew this was going to be our final broadcast. And not only our final broadcast of this season, but the final broadcast ever on Fan Duel Sports Network. And
it was the last, literally the last show ever on any of the Fan Duels, because all the others were black.
They were already all done. We were the last Fan Duel Sports Network region to be going in the playoffs. And yeah, so we knew the company officially shuts its doors, I think on Wednesday maybe, but this was the last show for any Fan Duel Sports Network regional. For us, it had been 26 years in this market since Fox Sports officially launched back in early 2001. And so many people along the way. And so it was really a strange day, a strange feeling as I was driving to the rink and thinking about I knew I was going to have to do a sign off on the end of our post-game show to kind of put a wrap on what's been 26 years of a partnership. And it just kind of, so it was, this could be a huge night for the Wild. Would have been really anticlimactic if the Wild had lost, and we'd be saying, well, we're all done. Have no idea what's going to happen in this series because it's not over yet. But for us, it's the end of a run. So it was fun to at least have a finality to the series to talk about. But yeah, it's a strange feeling to now know that, we're in past years, we would have been doing pre and post game shows for this next series. We're not going to even do that because the network is gone. So I have no idea if I'll be a busy guy or not during round 2, but we'll see if I can help you a little bit with your research. Cause all I do is try to make your job a little bit easier on a nightly basis.
I think you're going to be bored not doing those charts. So you might as well just do them and send them our way.
I won't be bored not doing the charts. That's the part of this job that is, and we've talked about it a little bit when fans have asked, and I don't mind doing it at all because the preparation is a part of the deal, and I'm a numbers guy, and I love digging into all that stuff. But it's always hard to step back and just watch it's like a national TV game during the regular season. I don't like during the playoffs. It's that times 100. When you sit back, this is what I do. I call the games, and here the Wild are advancing to the second round, and I become just like one of the fans with worst seats in the house. I'll be sitting in the crowd watching the game and catching a few of them on TV, I'm sure, but it's a different spot, no doubt. I'll be happy to help you though. I'll see if I can't dig up a couple things for you each game.
Yeah. If you can get me a couple of tickets for one of the home games, I'd appreciate it. I got a text today from our buddy Banjo Dave that liked to come to some games. So I need some help getting tickets.
Yeah, well, we've got a couple vacant seats in the old Fan Duel Sports Network booth. We'll see what we can do.
So, Anaheim Ducks, I think we both wondered if they'd win a game in this series. They go and eliminate the Edmonton Oilers, who advanced to the Stanley Cup final the last 2 years in a row. Clearly, Connor McDavid was hurt this series, even though he had a point every game. Could barely, he looked to be in agony. And I think there were a lot of guys on the Oilers, but no excuses. Anaheim, absolutely, who were dreadful down the stretch of the season, earned this victory. Huge I mean, they have a lot of really good young talent. The future of the Anaheim Ducks is bright, but they are going to, this series, whether it's against Utah or Vegas in the next round, is going to be terrific. Jackson Lacombe, Anthony, has turned into a star defenseman, and not just offensively, which is where I think that, everybody knew that he was really, really good. Defensively in this series, he was elite.
Yeah, I think he's a great example of people that panic early after draft picks. I remember his first season in the league, and some of the Ducks people were saying, geez, we draft, this is the guy that was going to be the game changer on the blue line for us. Just don't see it. Well, now all of a sudden, late last year, he started to show some signs of it and looked like a different player. And this year he's been terrific. Really, he's been terrific all year, but was great in this series. This series had a strange feel, and I happened to catch a few of these games just because they were on late at night after everything else was done. And it just always felt like Edmonton couldn't get out of their own way. I mean, this is a Ducks team that when we saw them next to last game of the regular season, the last game for us, next to last for them, they had lost 8 out of 9, and 7 of those 8 losses were against non-playoff teams. I mean, they looked like a team that was going to give up 6 goals a night in the postseason. And early in the series against Edmonton, that's exactly how they looked, but Edmonton couldn't keep the puck out of their own net. There were 3, 4, 5 times in the series where you felt like, okay, now it's when Edmonton takes over. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, Anaheim would have answered their goal. And, we didn't really talk about maybe one of the biggest plays of the whole series was that the goal that I think they got the call right. I think the puck was in the net. But it's bizarre how they got there, and a huge break for Anaheim because I know you've seen those pictures and the replays and everything. There is no way that any official on the ice saw that puck over the line live, where they then huddled. And as they huddle, and I'm thinking, like, why are you huddling? There was one guy on the goal line. There was nobody behind the net. There was a linesman at the half wall. The other 2 guys were out at neutral ice. Who else do you have to talk to see what they saw? The guy on the goal line couldn't see it, but they huddle and they come out with the call that says the call on the ice is a good goal. If they had said no goal on the ice, I don't believe that video review could have overturned that. And that was really a moment that swung that series. Now, who knows? Maybe Anaheim ends up winning that game later anyway, but at that moment, as they win the game, that changed the whole series, and it just seemed like Edmonton never really recovered from that moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. Although I think didn't Edmonton, I think they won the next game to at least force
They
the
won
game.
the next game, but
Yeah.
if instead of being that would have given them a 3-1 lead in the series, and I don't
think
see how Anaheim
logically, I
comes
think we
back.
all know it was a goal. The one
I
thing
agree. I
will
think
say,
they got the call right, but it's
to your point on the
but I don't know
inclusivity.
how they got it right.
Yeah. To your point on the inclusivity, like everybody was saying, because the league put out that statement saying that the puck completely crossed the goal line, that was proof that they conclusively determined that. I have never seen the league actually ever put in one of their releases that it was inconclusive. So I don't think that's what they were saying. I think that, to your point, I think they went with the call on the ice, and I think logically, when they saw that replay, they felt like it was a good goal. That's where I just wish that we had pool reporters that were allowed to talk to referees. Because Jake Brank, who I love, from here, played hockey at Mankato State. He was the referee down there on the goal line, and I'd love to know what he saw. Like, did he actually see? Maybe he did see the puck over the white because he was right there, but then still put the washout signal because he didn't know when it went over the line. That you just want to know what he saw.
Right, exactly. But if you look at where he was, there's no way he saw the puck over the line. There's just absolutely no way. And the defenseman knocks it with his stick before Brink gets behind the net. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying, like, it's not like it was done intentionally or it was, but there's no way from where he was that you could see it over the line. And that was, to me, what the problem with it all was, is that there's no chance anybody saw it enough to call it a good goal on the ice. And if they had said no goal on the ice, I don't know that you could have overturned it. And I think logically, when you look at that still frame of the puck underneath the skate, it looks like it's in. And I think a reasonable mind would accept that, but it's not. It wouldn't have been enough to prove to overturn a call, I don't believe. So, and it, Anaheim deserves to move on. I felt like that was one of those moments where it felt like Edmonton never really recovered from not winning that game.
Right. So Anaheim waiting for the winner of Vegas. Utah. Vegas right now has a 3-2 lead. Game 6 tonight in Salt Lake City.
Boy, and if Vegas had gotten any goaltending, this series would be 5-0 right now. I mean, it's the some of the games and the ways that Utah has stayed in those games. And Utah is a lot like Anaheim, where they're playing with kind of that house money, youthful exuberance right now that's fun to watch. But I think it was game 3 where Vegas had 12 of the first 13 shots on goal, and then all of a sudden Utah scores, and I think the shots ended up at one point they were like 30-12, and Utah was up 4-3 in the game. It feels like every puck has a chance to go in right now for the Mammoth.
Over in the East, Carolina and Philadelphia, they will be in the second round. That'll be a hard series. Probably not a lot of goals, Anthony. I think it's going to be a physical series. Carolina is obviously the tested team. I just don't see how Carolina lets this opportunity get past them. They've been so knocking on the door for years, but just can't get past the Florida Panthers. You have to, with Florida not in this round of 16. You have to take advantage of it. Carolina made easy work, swept the Ottawa Senators, and now they get to play a very young, up-and-coming Philadelphia Flyers team that knocked off the Penguins.
Yeah, this is a series Carolina has to win. And this is a year in the East where there isn't that great team. There's not a Florida, there's not a Tampa, there's not a Boston.
There is a Tampa still.
There is, but I'm saying like the Tampa teams that were the clear-cut favorites in the East. And there isn't one like that this year. There's not a Boston team that just set a league record for points. I mean, this is a year where the East there's good teams. Carolina's a good team. Buffalo's a good team. Tampa and Montreal, they're all good teams, but there's not a Colorado in the East. And so I think this is a series Carolina has to win.
Not a Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly. But that Philadelphia-Pittsburgh series was wildly entertaining. I mean, really, when you think about the first-round series that we've had, and a lot of it is the rivalries that were renewed with Buffalo and Boston, with Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, with Minnesota and Dallas, and Tampa-Montreal has been wildly entertaining. I mean, these are some terrific first-round playoff series between teams that, we saw it with Tampa Montreal down the stretch. It was like every time they ran into each other during the regular season, it was like this is a message for a playoff series, the way that they got after each other, and the series hasn't disappointed. Boston and Buffalo were great games. I mean, it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, a couple other game 6s tonight between Buffalo and Boston, and Tampa and Montreal. Montreal up 3-2, Buffalo up 3-2. I'll be rooting for one of these 3 game 6s tonight to go to 7, because my biggest fear is that these things all end, and all of a sudden we get the word that the Wild and Colorado starts on Sunday, and we're going to be having a get out there tonight or something. Because you know that the Wild are going to try to figure out a way to practice the day before game 1, and just out of superstition reasons in Denver, just because they go and did that against Dallas, and then they won 6-1 in game 1. And the other thing here is the altitude. I know that sometimes it's overblown, but I think you want to get out there a little bit early. So let's all hope for a game 7 on Sunday to stop the Wild and at Denver from the league doing something stupid and telling the Wild to fly out there tomorrow morning or something. That would be just like the NHL. It would be like at midnight, book your flights for the morning. So.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything, but to me, it seems I would bet that we're looking at Monday and Tuesday for first game ones of the second round.
The fact that they haven't announced it yet, Anthony, tells me that there is this chance that they play Sunday. And, the national TV have those windows, those games. And that's what concerns me. There's no reason that we don't know now unless there's a chance. And I can tell you everything the Wild were hearing last night is that when they start to term is dependent on tonight, and then that there's games, at least one game 7 on Sunday.
Yeah, well, and it's possible that it could be who wins in that Utah-Vegas series, too, because if you're going to try and get a Western Conference games on alternate nights, and now maybe you've got something where there's an arena issue or one of those teams, like let's say Vegas. I don't know what conflicts Vegas or Utah would have in their arenas, but if one of them had a conflict where you had to have them start on a different night, that could be part of the delay too. I mean, we don't know all of the factors involved here, and it's all speculation for me because I haven't, knowing we weren't going to be calling the games, I hadn't really checked into what day they might start.
You're retired. I'm shocked you're not on the golf course now.
I might be later this afternoon.
Okay. All right. Good podcast. Anthony, I know you're retired, but we're going to still do podcasts after these games.
Yeah, well, I'm not retired. I'm just on vacation.
Yeah. It's a long vacation.
It is. Training camp is in 4 months.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, the next round, the timing of every podcast is now completely dependent on my schedule. That is a fact.
Know, I do have some tee times.
That is a fact. We're doing it to make it as less.
We're going to do it the second island.
It's the second. I had to let you guys know. We had a producer that overslept 2 shows ago. Everything's on you. You know, I'm the only one that was on that 6 a.m.
We do these
yesterday.
shows whatever time you say you want to play.
I was on the 6 a.m. flight. You weren't. I was already perturbed that you didn't get no sleep. So I was letting you guys know the second I walk in my house, we're either starting the podcast or I'm going to sleep.
Right. Yep. It's unbelievable the life you lead, Michael.
You think that these articles just miraculously show up. So,
somebody's getting a very important phone call. It's got to be more important than what we're talking about right here.
It is absolutely, and that's the wrap. That Saved by the Bell. Thanks to our incredible sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer in Connecticut Water Treatment Systems, Onyx Maps, Stretch Lab, and Great Clips. Thanks everybody, and talk to you after Game 1 of the second round. Oh my God! So much coming out. There's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive.